It is an honor to be with you tonight, and I think we're going to need a bigger hotel next year. Congratulations to all of you. Give yourselves a round of applause. When APPNA had its first annual conference 37 years ago, I can't imagine that the founders would have imagined this tremendous growth and success of the organization. But the organization has succeeded because of a powerful vision and a powerful mission. I want to offer just a few words tonight. Dr. Paracha told you about my role in the United States Senate on 3 topics. Your role as frontline providers of health care in this country. Second, the relationship, the critical and important relationship between the United States and Pakistan. And finally, the important role that Pakistani Americans play in American civic life. Let me talk about each of the issues. You're here because you're physicians and healthcare professionals of Pakistan descent, and you have chosen to embrace the healing profession of being a physician and ministering to the health needs of others. And you do this often having been educated in Pakistan and then having come to the United States for residencies or other training. You do this in the nation that is the richest nation on earth, the largest GDP on earth, the United States of America. But as the CEO of Medtronic, Dr. Ishraq mentioned earlier, we have tremendous inequities and gaps that we need to solve, even in this wealthy nation, and you are critical to doing it. In my Commonwealth of Virginia, every year in July, there is an event at a dusty county fairgrounds in Wise County in far southwestern Virginia. A Catholic nun working together with others decided about 20 years ago to do a health fair and to try to offer health care to individuals who did not have health care of their own or health insurance. And so over time, this tradition, the RAM Clinic, has grown to a Friday, Saturday, Sunday health fair at the Virginia-Kentucky Fairgrounds in Wise, Virginia. And people from around the region and beyond start to gather not on Friday, but on Tuesday or Wednesday, often with their children in their vehicles, to camp and wait to be admitted to see a physician. They come by the tens, and then by the dozens, and then by the hundreds, and ultimately by the thousands to this tiny fairground deep in rural Appalachia in Virginia. And when the gate opens on Friday morning, they've been given a number, and they can go in with their children, and perhaps at age 35 have an eye exam for the first time in their life, or to have teeth pulled that are causing them all kinds of dental problems. An inspiring group of volunteers gathers, but the first time I went to the RAM Medical Clinic in Wise, Virginia, before I went in to volunteer, I walked through the parking lot and looked at the license plates from where patients had come. No surprise, there were many license plates from Virginia. There were license plates from Kentucky and West Virginia and Tennessee and North Carolina. But there were also license plates at this remote medical clinic from Oklahoma and Georgia and Florida, people having driven days because they wanted access to the basic healing that healthcare can provide in the richest nation on earth. Dr. Paracha mentioned I worked with Jesuit missionaries in Honduras, the second poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, in 1980 and 81. And the first time I went to the RAM Clinic in Wise, Virginia, it reminded me of what I had seen in Honduras 30 years ago. So even in this nation, there is tremendous need. And we are now engaged in a, let's face it, it's an experiment. It's a period of change as we are trying to determine how to accomplish those goals that were mentioned earlier, of providing greater access to health care while maintaining high quality of care and a culture of innovation, and also doing it in a way that will be cost effective. I know that changes in healthcare to those of you in the profession can seem very challenging and difficult, but you have a unique ability as frontline providers of care and thoughtful individuals who understand public policy in a time of change in this country to influence the changes we are making in a way that they are for the better, so that more people will be served in more cost-effective ways, in a way as to produce higher and higher healthcare outcomes. And so my first request to you, but it's a request I make with confidence because this is one of the very missions of APPNA, is to be deeply engaged in the discussion with your elected policymakers about healthcare reforms going forward. The Affordable Care Act may have passed. It is doing a number of good things, but it also has a number of problems. And that means those of us in Congress have to be willing to cast votes and pass reforms, and we will only do it well if you speak to us and if we listen. So that would be my first request, and again, I make it with confidence knowing that that's what APPNA will do, that APPNA will reach out with ideas about how we can do a better job at what your professional mission is. Second, let me say a word about the U.S.-Pakistan relationship. We are really fortunate. I feel honored to be speaking to all of you tonight, and we have the ambassador from Pakistan to the United States, Ambassador Gilani, who was with us tonight. If you would please give him a round of applause. The U.S.-Pakistan relationship is critically important in a very challenging world. I am the chairman of the subcommittee of Senate Foreign Relations that oversees Pakistan. The subcommittee is actually the subcommittee on the Near East, South, and Central Asia, and it is everywhere from Marrakesh to Bangladesh. It is a very, very large subcommittee. But that U.S.-Pakistan relationship, I don't think it has ever been as important. And we celebrated Pakistan's independence this week during the life of modern independent Pakistan. I don't think the U.S.-Pakistan relationship has ever been as important as it is today. So very important. And the relationship has had, in recent years, some rockiness to it. We need to be honest about that. But it is an important relationship, and Pakistan has been a valuable partner for us, for the United States and other nations, in a very difficult war against terrorism. And Pakistanis have suffered grievously in that war, just as Americans have. And it's really important that Americans understand the sacrifices that Pakistanis have made. And so the relationship is important, and you as Pakistani Americans can play a critical role in making that relationship stronger. For example, we see not only in Pakistan or in the region, we see all over the world the growth in religious extremism. This is a global phenomenon, whether it's in Myanmar, or in Syria and Iraq, or in Egypt, or in Uganda. We see this all over the world. We live in a nation whose First Amendment guarantees to all the right to worship or not worship as they please without being preferred or punished for their choice of worship. And it is such a powerful thing that we have. And so you, as Muslims or Christians, or however you choose to practice your faith, one of the great virtues we have in this country is that we live side by side, we work side by side, we go to school side by side, and when we do it right, we can show the rest of the world that that's possible. And so, as we try to hold up an example that can battle religious extremism anywhere in the world, the experience that you, as Pakistani Americans, as Muslim Americans, many or most of you have in this country, is something that you can share and show others, because you're all connected globally, show others that it is possible to live in a society that honors religious belief and tradition, but allows all to express their beliefs and practice their traditions in a way where we can do it in common and learn from each other. So that's the second point that I want to make. The Pakistani-American relationship is as important today as it's ever been, and Pakistani Americans, you can have a critical role in making that relationship stronger, and I know you do. Finally, let me say a word about the role of Pakistani Americans in American civic and civil life. There was an article in the Washington Post earlier this week by columnist Dana Milbank. It was an article that was about a set of polls that had been done by the Pew Center on Charitable Trusts. And the article was titled, this was essentially the title, "The End of American Optimism." Polling is suggesting that many Americans today are not as optimistic about the future that their children will have as Americans were 20 or 40 or 60 years ago. While we have challenges, and we can't sugarcoat them, it is events like this that make me more optimistic about tomorrow and more optimistic about our future. And it is very important for Pakistani Americans to be deeply involved, not just in philanthropy and the professions, because there is deep involvement, but also deeply involved in our political culture. The phenomenal growth of this community, more than 500,000 Pakistani Americans in the United States, sizable Pakistani American communities in Virginia, has been a real source of American success. If I could just tell you a Virginia story and then conclude. You see, Virginia, when I was born, I live in Richmond. Virginia was one of the poorest states in America. Bottom 15 per capita income. Virginia was also one of the least educated states in America. Low percentages of children even attended school, and the percentage of adults with college degrees was less than half the national average. That was when I was born 56 years ago. Today, Virginia's per capita income is in the top 10 in the country, and our education levels are also in the top 10 in the country. Why? What made the change? Well, what made the change was Virginians decided to finally listen to Thomas Jefferson's words and embrace talent. Whoever it is, wherever someone comes from, whatever their religion, whatever their tone of skin, whatever language was their original language. If we can be a magnet in Virginia, in America, for talent, to grow our own and attract the best talent, then we will be strong. And that's what has turned Virginia from an economically sluggish state to a dynamic state. The growth of new Americans, the increase in the number of Asian Americans, the increase in the number of Pakistani Americans has been an integral part of that story. In fact, when I was born in Virginia, 1 out of every 100 Virginians you would meet had been born in another country. Today, 1 out of every 9 Virginians you meet was born in another country. And our economy is stronger, our society is richer, our values are stronger because of the tremendous contribution of the Pakistani American community and the other new American communities who have come to Virginia to this country. And so that leads to my second request. The one thing that we do see, while the Pakistani American community is growing and thriving in Virginia, we still don't see a lot of Pakistani Americans running for and standing for political office. Now, I'll be the first to tell you, it's not easy. I wouldn't sugarcoat it and say it's an easy line of work. But I think more engagement of the Pakistani American community, even to the point of running for office, would not only be great for the community, more importantly, it would be fantastic for our country, fantastic for our Commonwealth. So, thank you for inviting me tonight, and I hope you have a great